Partnership, and Engagement. We welcome you to our National Stakeholder Engagement today. Today's presentation is going to be part of our ongoing engagement series, the Tech Talks, on keeping families together. So I am joined today by several of my colleagues from the Digital Services Division of the Office of Access and Information Services, including Jana Evans and Quinn Andrews from the Process Improvement Team. We also have some additional USCIS subject matter experts who are joining us, and they will help to address your questions in the question and answer session following our presentation. So we do look forward to answering as many of your questions as possible. Before we get into the presentation, let me just review a disclaimer with you. So today's presentation and the information we're sharing are for informational purposes only and not legal advice. The information is intended solely for public outreach. And now I wanted to go over some reminders for today's event before we begin as well. If we have any members of press or any staff from congressional offices, please reach out to media@uscis.dhs.gov. And if you're from congressional offices, please reach out to our legislative affairs team. I did want to point out that this engagement is being recorded, and we will publish it to the USCIS electronic reading room on our website. After this presentation, we will, as I mentioned earlier, address your questions. And if you would like to submit a question, please use the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. Please keep in mind that we will not address any case-specific questions today, any questions related to ongoing litigation, or any questions outside the scope of today's engagement. So with that, I would like to turn the floor over to my colleague, Jana Evans.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining. We're happy to have a good group together to speak to today about this important topic. Today, we're going to focus on how a legal representative prepares Form I-131F in the online account. We'll review the steps the legal representative takes and then review the steps that the client takes. We will be able to respond to some submitted questions that we've already received and also take your live questions. And as always, if you have any requests for presentations, you can write to that mailbox that's shown there in the lower left-hand corner. Just as a reminder, on August 26, 2024, the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Texas in Texas versus the Department of Homeland Security administratively stayed DHS from granting parole in place under the Keeping Families Together process for 14 days. The district court might extend the period of this administrative stay. And while this administrative stay is in place, we will not grant any pending parole in place requests under Keeping Families Together. We will continue to accept filings. And while the administrative stay is in place, we will continue to schedule biometric appointments and capture biometrics at application support centers. The district court's administrative stay order does not affect any applications that were approved before the stay went into place. And I wanted to show you that we have an extensive set of frequently asked questions at this website. It also paralleled on our Spanish website. This has all of the latest updates, very detailed and exhaustive eligibility requirements, suggested options to consider for the kinds of evidence that can be submitted, online filing tips, and here you can see how the accordion folders work. On the very bottom of that, under related links, that's where we have our 2-page flyer that has an infographic that we hope will help people determine if they're eligible. They have to be able to respond yes to each of those declarative statements. So that's where we have a lot of really great information for you. All right, so beginning with the representative online account, the very first step that they'll take is adding a client. And they'll be able to do that. I think that you all have, many have figured out how to do this. It's really easy. Under the My Clients tab in your homepage, you would click this blue button that says Add a Client. And it couldn't be any easier. You add the client's name and the email address associated with their online account. We do have kind of a warning here at the bottom to make sure that the email address you enter is the email address that the client used or will use to create their online account. If you make a mistake, the representative passcode will not work and you won't be able to link up the work that you prepared for your client and they won't be able to see it. So that's our kind of our warning. The second thing that you'll do is select the client for whom you want to file a form. So in this example, I have 3 clients, Alma Rios, Jaime Rios, and Jane Smith. So you would select the person for whom you want to file the form. In this case, we're going to be preparing the form for Jaime Rios. And you select that drop down and it will open up and you will choose File a Form. You can also remove a client if you want to, but we're going to go ahead and choose File a Form. Then this dialog box will open and you will confirm the client for whom you are filing this form. Make sure it's the right client. And then you will use the drop down to select the I-131F, application for parole in place for certain non-citizen spouses and stepchildren of U.S. citizens. The third step is filling out the form. The form has 4 sections. It is it's actually a pretty quick form. I like demoing this form because it's very straightforward and it's quick to fill out. So the 4 sections are pretty self-explanatory. Here on the left rail, you can see getting started, about you, evidence, and then the review and submit. And the form starts with this section, which is the type of filing. Are you filing as the spouse of a United States citizen or the stepchild of a United States citizen? Again, this is the beginning point of the form. The conditional logic that we have built into the form stems initially from the kind of request that's being made for the spouse of a U.S. citizen or the stepchild of a U.S. citizen. If the request is for the stepchild of a U.S. citizen, just a couple of kind of comments, just things to be aware of. The stepchild does not have to wait for their parent to file. The stepchild can apply even if their parent does not apply. So they can do it, you know, with or without their parent. But if their parent applies first, include the parent's receipt number on the child's form. And there is a space to do that. They would enter that IOE receipt number from the parent's application if the parent has already applied. And that's just a very small difference in the stepchild flow. The rest of the form is very, very similar for the stepchild flow. But for our purposes today, we're going to walk through the spouse of the U.S. citizen flow. The form, like I said, it's very straightforward. You'll enter some biographic information about your client, their date of birth, their contact information, where they were born, their address. They'll describe them, you know, you'll describe them with the, I think that there's some physical attributes that are asked for. And then I just want to draw your attention to this section. There is a requirement to enter a narrative on their qualification for parole. So in this section, the applicant is asked to explain why or how they qualify for parole in place. So this is where they would tell their story. 750 characters are required in this space. If they don't enter 750 characters, for example, this, they will get a red alert. And a red alert is a hard stop. You won't be able to submit the form until you have entered more than 750 characters or up to 2,000 characters in this space. So if you get this alert, it means you have not submitted enough content. If the applicant wants to submit a lengthier narrative, more than 2,000 characters, you can do that by uploading a written statement or a letter, and you can upload that as additional evidence. So we have, quite a few ways for this to be, for that narrative to be accepted, but I just want to draw your attention to the 750 character requirement. And again, it's characters, not words. Okay, so this is kind of the critical section of the form. Step 4 is where you're going to upload evidence. And we have a menu, which is shown here, of the evidence that is needed to for us to be able to consider this person's request. So the form is going to prompt for evidence based on the type of request. And we strongly recommend that you gather all the evidence ahead of time and prepare it for upload before beginning the form. We say this to applicants who are filling the form out on their own, and also to you as the legal representative. Get it all set up, get the documents scanned, and you can either take a picture of them or scan them, give them a nice short name, and make sure that you follow our naming convention, which I'm going to spend some time on in a minute. But this is the section that is critical to this entire form. So we have, for every item of evidence that you upload, we offer these reminders about the file requirements. And we find that people don't often read them, and actually it's very helpful. So the most common error message or the common complaint that we hear from people is that they can't upload their document, and it usually comes down to a prohibited character that is in the file name. So this is a reminder here. The file name characters can be in English letters. So foreign alphabets are not allowed. Foreign accents and characters are not allowed. We only allow English letters, numbers, spaces, periods, hyphens, underscores, and parentheses. So here's an example that we actually got a congressional inquiry about this one. The applicant wrote to their member of Congress, and it came down through the chain to me, and I immediately saw it, but nobody else had, that there's an apostrophe in the name of the document. That apostrophe is a prohibited character. Our system cannot read it. So this is, and the error statement that says only English language characters are accepted, it doesn't necessarily mean that the document name cannot be in Spanish. It could say certificado de matrimonio or certificado de nacimiento, but it's got to be only in the English language alphabet with no special characters. So if you get this message, it's because you have a special character or a prohibited character in the name of the document. So you'll want to rename that and make sure that you only use, basically just use letters and try to avoid punctuation. So hopefully that will help. All right, so then you're going to finish the form, which actually is, if you've got all the documents ready for upload, it goes pretty quickly. And once you finish the form and you click this button on the lower right hand side that says finish and continue, that form will be locked for editing. So you'll go ahead and finish, and then you'll move on to the G28. And with the G28, you have the option to auto-populate the G28 data about yourself based on your account profile. So you have that option. We recommend it, but it's up to you. So you can auto-populate or, type it out on your own. It does save you a little bit of time to auto-populate. When you're done with the G28, which you have filled out many times, the system will automatically generate a one-time passcode. We call this the representative passcode. You will give this code to your client. I think that the best way to give it to them is either as a text message or email it to them, because of the combination of letters and numbers and dashes. Something may be lost if you say it over the phone to them. So that's why I'm recommending you email it or text it. And then your kind of the first phase of your work on this is done. And it now will turn over to the client. So now I'm going to pretend that I'm the client and show you what the client will do. The client will log in to their account. That's their first step. And depending on what they've done in their account before, if it's the first time that they've done anything, they will see this onboarding page, which has 6 activity tiles that show what they can do. They would choose this one, enter representative passcode, and they will literally copy and paste that code that you gave them on the next screen. They may also see, depending on what they've done in their account before, they may go to their home page and they would use the My Account drop-down menu and get to enter a representative passcode there. So there's a couple ways to go about it. It's pretty easy, but in either case, they will enter the passcode, and that will give them access to the forms that you prepared for them. So the second step is that they will review the G28 that you prepared for them. The client has the ability only to accept or decline. They cannot make any edits. So if they have feedback for you, it's going to need to be, either over the phone or via email. They cannot edit these forms. And they have 3 ways to review both the G28 and the benefit form. They can view a draft snapshot, which will look like a PDF. They can print the screen, or they can view a long vertical view of that form. So it would go down much longer, but they would be able to review it there. And then at the end of their review, they have the opportunity here to either accept the G28 or decline it. So if the client accepts it, they would move on to the I-131F. If they decline it, everything goes back to you for edits. And you would need to make the edits, send another representative passcode to the client, and the process would repeat until they get a draft that they feel that they can accept. So we'll go ahead and accept, and then they'll move on to the I-131F. So the third step is the client will review the I-131F and indicate if they want to receive notices and documents, or if they want them sent to you as a legal representative. And they sign simply by typing their name. So that's their electronic signature. Again, they're typing their name as their electronic signature. When they are done with the review and they have accepted both forms, they will be able to see in their account kind of a draft case card, and they'll be able to see your representative needs to pay for, if a fee is required, and submit your form. So they'll see that a draft is there. It's not a submitted case yet, it's only a draft. Now we're going back to the legal representative account experience. So I'm performing the last steps that you as a legal representative will take. So you will see here under your draft cases, you have a draft for Jaime Rios that is ready to be paid for and submitted. And you would select either Actions View Draft or pay and submit. So you can view the draft and make edits. If you do make edits, it would need to go back to your client again for signature, but you would be able to pay and submit there. So we have a couple different ways for you to sort your cases. And so I'm going to show you a very short kind of a little video of how that would look. So this is how that sorting looks when you have a submitted case. So you have draft cases and you also have submitted cases. The drafts, you can sort by those that are ready to be paid for and submitted. And there you can see the form types. You have a couple different ones. You can look at drafts that have been started. And there's one for Delta Rios. That's a draft that you can continue. And you can also find the ones that are ready to be sent to the client for signature. So you have these filters that you can use to sort cases. You can sort drafts as well as submitted cases. You can clear your filters and kind of start over if you wish as well. And then I'm looking for the one where it goes to the submitted case, but I'm not seeing it. Okay. Just going to go real quick. So this is what the submitted case card looks like. You can see the applicant's name, the form number and name, the submitted date, receipt number. You can download a PDF. You can withdraw the G28 if you need to. And here are the case tabs in the case card, case status, the evidence that was uploaded, any notices, and case history. So this is a very like a strong reminder to you that we are not issuing any notices by mail for the I-131F. Everything is done through the account. So nobody will be getting biometrics notices in the mail. Everything will come to their account. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Ebony, I believe, or Natasha for our Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks, Jana. Thanks for that presentation. And as she mentioned, we are now going to move into our question and answer session. Please feel free to share your questions with us in the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. While we will not be able to address all questions, we will address as many as possible here, and we will also update our frequently asked questions webpage on USCIS.gov, so there'll be a wealth of information there as well. As a reminder, we will not be able to address certain questions or topics related to ongoing litigation. And also, as you can see up on the screen that Jana's sharing with us, we have several resources there to help you understand the process and to submit your request for parole in place. So while we go through the question and answer session, we'll leave that slide up just so you can review those resources. And with that, we will go ahead and get started with our first question. Can I choose my biometrics office? My zip code will send us to another state, but there is an office near my parents. Can we go there instead? And I believe Quinn might be able to help us address this question.
I sure can. Thanks very much. And thanks for the presentation, Jana. That was a good job. There's a lot of information here and you cover it really well. The answer is yes. You can reschedule your biometrics appointment. You can change the date, the time, and the location. It's one of those customer service tools that we enabled last year, and it's been very popular and helpful. A legal representative can also reschedule a biometrics appointment for the client. Here are some of the rules, though. I mean, you have to fulfill a certain requirement. The appointment, it still must be in the future. You can't have already missed it. It cannot be rescheduled more than twice. And in your when you reschedule the appointment, it has to fulfill one of the reasonable reasons. You know, you had a doctor's appointment or you don't have transportation. There's a drop-down menu that gives you these reasons, and it's broad enough that probably one of them will fit your situation. You would go to your online account, and in the My Account menu at the top toolbar, near the bottom of that drop-down list, you will see Reschedule Biometrics. And then the system will lead you through about 5 steps, which includes verifying your current appointment, then selecting the reason that you need to reschedule, and then you will select either the same or a new location for your appointment, and a date and a time. The system will tell you which dates and times are available at the location that you chose. Then there's a confirmation, and you will receive a new appointment notice in your online account. Be sure to print that notice and bring it to your appointment.
Thank you, Quinn, for your help with that answer. That was very helpful. And with that, we will move to our next question. Do we know if the EADs are renewable after the 3-year period? And I will reach out to Amani if you could help us with that one.
Sure, thanks, Ebony. So if your request is approved under this process and then you later apply for and are granted an employment authorization document, or I'll call it an EAD, under the eligibility category of C11, your EAD will generally be valid for the same duration as your parole period, which in this process can be up to 3 years. So something important to note is there is no renewal process for the parole in place at this time or the related EAD. So if you would like employment authorization or an EAD after the parole period, you'll have to apply for an EAD based on a different eligibility ground or a different eligibility category. So something to note that's important is that, you know, once you apply for adjustment of status following this grant of parole in place, you would then be eligible to apply for employment authorization based on having a pending adjustment application under the eligibility category of C9, and then you'd receive an EAD with that, a 5-year validity category of C9. So again, there's at this time no contemplated renewal process for the parole in place or for the related EAD. So you'll have to go through another process and have eligibility for an EAD under some other category. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your assistance with that question. And for our next question, if my parole in place is approved, can I request permission to travel outside of the country? And I think Sheila might be able to help us with that one.
Yeah, thanks, Ebony. And thank you for the question. Yes, you can request permission to travel outside of the country, but you may only request this after your parole in place request is approved. Please note that a grant of parole in place through Keeping Families Together does not authorize parole back into the United States if you decide to depart. If you depart the United States after being granted parole in place without requesting and obtaining an advance parole document in advance of your travel, your period of parole will automatically terminate. You must first obtain an advance parole document before leaving the United States so that you do not run a significant risk of not being able to return to the United States.
Thanks, Sheila. And we will move on to our next question. How do we know if our client has been approved? Also, what would be the next step in the process? And for this one, I'll go back to Mani.
Thanks, Ebony. So if you are approved, you will receive an approval notice in your MyUSCIS online account. Just like Jana said, basically all notices will be in the online account. As for next steps, you know, you should not delay in filing any subsequent applications that you would like to file, such as the EAD, application for request for advanced travel document, and then importantly, of course, the Form I-130, you know, family petition, and the Form I-485 adjustment of status application. So those would sort of be the next steps. Again, because the parole period is 3 years, and you know, there's not really at this point a renewal process. Thanks.
Thanks, Imani. And we received a question related to biometrics. How long after biometrics are taken does the background check take, and will results be posted on the USCIS portal? Quinn, could you help us with that question?
Sure. The length of time it takes to complete a background check varies according to the individual. So there's no way for me to say, just in general, it will take so long. That's always going to be very specific to the individual. But if you're asking if the results of the background check or when it is completed are posted, the answer to that is no. As soon as a decision is made on the case, though, as soon as a decision is made on the application, that will appear in your online account.
Thanks, Quinn, for
Sure.
that answer. And for our next question, someone is asking if I filled out the application and provided a short statement in the field asking why I should be granted parole using the minimum requirements of 750 characters, and so they enter the answer. Is there a more detailed and lengthier statement suggested?
I'll answer that one too, Ebony, thanks. So it's not that a more detailed, lengthier statement is suggested or required. This is up to you. How many words do you feel like you need to use to completely say what you want to say? And if 750 characters, I'm sorry, you have 2,000. If 2,000 characters isn't enough, then you can make a longer statement, make it as a document, and then you could upload it in the evidence section. At the bottom of the evidence section, there's a part that's called additional evidence, and that's where you could upload this additional file. The thing that we would ask you to do specifically is to give that file a short, descriptive name so the officer can see at a glance what it is.
Thank you, Quinn, for helping to clarify for that question. And for our next one, someone is asking if evidence for an I-131F, when they try to add the evidence, they're getting an error message saying only English characters, but the documents are entirely in English. So how can they get past that error when this occurs?
Okay, I got you for this one too. We hear this a lot, and it's not because the requirements are unclear, it's because we're so accustomed to using certain symbols that we don't realize that they're not allowed. The requirements for the file names are right there on the evidence page, and they're always visible so you can see them. And yes, one of them says English language letters only, and you can't use special characters. And what people forget is that an apostrophe even is a special character. So if you were putting applicant's apostrophe S statement, then you might get that error message that says English characters only. The entire file, the contents of the file can be in an entirely different language. It's not the content of the file that this is referring to, it's the title of the file. Of course, if you had foreign language documents, you'd get a certified translation and upload that as well. But the title that you give it would be short and descriptive and with English letters only and no special characters.
Quinn, could I just jump in and tag on that? Another thing that we think may be happening is that if the clients or if anybody has a keyboard that is set for another language, it will have accents like the enye or the accent over the E or, any other accent that just you may not, be accustomed to noticing, but our system cannot read it. So it just has to be in the English language alphabet. But as I said, the name of the document, it should probably be in English, but as long as it's in the English language alphabet, it could say certificado or, reporte or, whatever. It just has to be in the English language alphabet with no special characters. Just look at the file name carefully. If you're getting that message, there is a little symbol in there somewhere, like I just showed in the example.
You know what, Jana, while we're talking about the evidence page, there's another question that came up that asks, when it says upload no more than 5 documents at a time, what does that really mean? And when you submit your application for the first time, you can upload as many documents as you need to. You can upload as much evidence as you feel you have to upload to make your case. The system requirement is that each file size must be no more than 12 megabytes, and you can only upload 5 at once. So you upload 5, and then 5 more, and then 5 more until you've uploaded everything that you want to. It's not that you can only have 5, it's that you can only have 5 at a time. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Quinn and Jana. That was very helpful. I know we get that question about the era with uploading documents often, so thank you for providing all that helpful information. I will try to get us through a few more questions in the time we have remaining. So the next question we have is, if someone has a 20-year-old deportation order in absentia that they were unaware of until now, what are examples of evidence or arguments they can present in their application to overcome the assumption of inadmissibility? For this one, Sheila, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, all good. Thanks, Stephanie. I'll take that one. Thanks for the question again. So in terms of in absentia orders, USCIS will evaluate in the exercise of its discretion on a case-by-case basis all positive and negative factors presented in each individual's case, including the facts and circumstances underlying the unexecuted final removal order. Examples of information that may be relevant in overcoming the presumption of ineligibility include, but are not limited to, circumstances surrounding the removal order, such as lack of proper notice, the individual's age when the removal order was issued, lack of counsel, ineffective assistance of counsel, or being a victim of fraud in connection with immigration representation, as well as other extenuating factors or considerations such as language access issues, status as a victim of domestic violence, a physical or mental condition requiring care or treatment, other extenuating personal factors such as the requester's limited resources, including lack of housing that would have affected the requester's ability to appear, as well as other mitigating factors.
Thanks, Sheila, for helping with that question. We are going to try to address a couple more. So this question is from an attorney who has a USCIS account, and the client also has an account. And they're inquiring about passwords. Does the client also need a password or a passcode from the lawyer? And how does it work between the USCIS accounts, the client and the lawyer during the process?
That's a cool question. So when a legal representative fills out an online form for their client, after they finish filling out the form in the G28, they receive a code that they must give to their client. The client logs into their own online account and enters the code to review the forms that the legal representative has prepared for them. And they can either accept or decline them. If they decline them, then the legal rep has an opportunity to make changes or start over, whatever is necessary. If the client accepts them, then the legal representative is now able to pay for and submit the forms. You can see this process, actually. There's a really good video on the USCIS YouTube channel. We posted our recent engagement called USCIS Tech Talks Keeping Families Together, and there's a video embedded in there that shows this process in our QA environment and our test environment. You can see exactly what happens when these steps are taken. And I recommend that you go to the USCIS YouTube channel and check that out. And I also wanted to add, because I saw this question a bunch of times about email notifications. Currently, email notifications to legal representatives are not enabled. Attorneys have more forms than applicants, and the notifications don't give form-specific indications, so representatives weren't finding them helpful. So we're working on that functionality, and it's not available at this time. Just to answer your questions, that came from many people.
Thank you, Quinn, and thank you for addressing the part about the notices as well. That is a question that we get often. So with the time remaining, we do want to at least try to address one more question. We received a question regarding the 10-year presence. Do we submit one document for every month for each year for the last 10 years? Or would beginning, middle, and end of each year work? For example, a document for the first 3 months, the middle 3 months, etc. The person just wants clarification on how many documents per year would be sufficient to meet that requirement. And for that one, I'll ask Amani if you could help us with that one.
Sure, thanks, Ebony. And before I answer, I just want to say that many of the questions that we received today, we have provided answers on our website on a page called Frequently Asked Questions About Keeping Families Together. If you have not already accessed that site, I would encourage you to. It's pretty comprehensive. We will be adding to it as we find that there are other frequently asked questions and making edits as necessary. In response to this specific question about how much evidence to include to show the 10-year continuous physical presence requirement, it's really hard to say that there's a specific number or pieces of evidence that you should submit. And really, you should just provide documentation to account for as much of the period as reasonably possible. But there's definitely no requirement that every day or month of that period be specifically accounted for through direct evidence. So what's helpful to us is to submit evidence of your physical presence during at least each year of the required 10-year period. And then we'll review the documentation and determine whether you've established your eligibility of that requirement. And if there are any gaps in your documentation or questions that we have about whether you were continuously physically present in the United States for that required period, we may issue at our discretion a request for evidence to allow you to submit additional documentation that supports your claims. Thanks.
Thanks, Quinn. I'm sorry. Thanks, Manny. You all have been jumping in to help questions. Sorry about that. Appreciate it. And I know that we are right at our time now. So I will go out to the subject matter experts to see if there's anything else that they wanted to address before we close out.
Ebony, I'd like to just touch on the comment that I saw several times in the chat box, and that is people are asking about the online account number. So our online forms do always ask for what is your online account number. And this is an optional field. The client will only have an online account number if they previously filed a form online or linked a paper form to their account. If those factors apply to them, then they will have an account number and it will be in their account profile. But it is an optional field, and they can say, I don't know, or I don't have that, and proceed.
Thank you, Jana, for sharing that additional information before we closed out. And as Amani and Quinn and others have mentioned, on the screen, we have a lot of helpful resources, a list of them. We have information about online filing. We have information about the process and how to complete it. So please do visit uscis.gov for all of that helpful information. Most of the content that we covered today, all of the content that we covered today is there. So you'll find a lot of helpful tools. And we'd like to encourage you to monitor any updates related to the process. If you visit that first link that you see on the screen, you can sign up for email updates. And once you sign up for the updates, you'll receive various notices about future engagements or more information, including information on keeping families together. So we do encourage you to do that if you have not done so at uscis.gov/outreach.